So we've looked at examples from across Europe, particularly the UK and also at the European level, as well as what's happening in Ukraine and Moldova. And we've tried to stimulate conversations between the two sides, government and civil society, in these two project countries. In Ukraine, we're focusing on 4 oblasts: Kherson, Poltava, Sumy and Luhansk. And in Moldova, we're focusing on the whole country. So there is an even spread across at least a wide range of territories in Ukraine and the whole of Moldova. And we've been running a series of roundtables, like this one, but at the local level across the 4 oblasts in Ukraine and at the national level in Moldova. And these roundtables have been taking place for the last 2 years, with the aim of helping government and civil society to understand the perspectives of the other side, to help civil society understand the challenges and the pressures of working in government, of delivering public policy, and to help the government officials understand the challenges of trying to run an NGO, trying to satisfy the needs of the beneficiaries, but also understanding all the struggles around funding and all the other practical issues that are relevant to the civil society organisation. So it's very important to build this mutual understanding, and that's been one of our first objectives. Building on that mutual understanding, the aim was then to stimulate practical examples of cooperation between government and civil society that can be effective and successful on a small scale. The reason why this is so important is because many people, not just in Ukraine and Moldova, but all over the world, particularly in government, they will say, why should I listen to NGOs? What can they offer me? What is the point? And by gathering these examples, these case studies of effective cooperation between government and civil society, we can convince every government official, even the most reluctant in these two countries, that actually there is a very clear benefit, because here's an example of a colleague of yours in the same country experiencing very successful and effective cooperation. So the message is that in some cases civil society can make government's job easier, and likewise for civil society it is often easier to do your job if you're working with rather than against government. So the aim has been to build mutual understanding and then build these specific concrete examples of cooperation, which we are now going to be publishing in a handbook which will be disseminated widely in the national languages. So this is really the main aim of the project, is to build understanding, is to build practical cooperation as a model that can be replicated and scaled up across both countries. As well as these roundtables, which have met a number of times, we've also run some other activities. I'll quickly list them now. We ran training masterclasses for civil society organisations in Ukraine and Moldova, focusing on networking and advocacy. These were last year for only 30 people each, so they were very selective. And the aim was really to show civil society the practical ways in which you can get the most out of relationships with government. The roundtables then gave an opportunity for the civil society organisation to put this learning into practice over the following year. We also ran a study visit at the end of February to Brussels and then to London for a group of government officials and civil society representatives from both Ukraine and Moldova. Firstly, to learn about European integration and the relationship between the European institutions and civil society, and then to London, where we learnt about the relationships between civil society and government in the UK. We met with various government officials and parliamentarians there. And a number of the participants of that study visit are here around the table. In fact, maybe you could raise your hand if you were involved, so that everybody can see who was there. Maybe raise your hand a bit higher, so that everybody can see. There's some reluctance, but I assure you it was a very enjoyable and very useful week for everyone. And hopefully we can hear something about the lessons learned during that week, also during the rest of this afternoon. As well as the masterclasses and the study visits, we're also publishing this handbook, as I mentioned, which will be disseminated in the coming weeks. And of course tomorrow's big conference, where we are expecting 100 people from across both countries. There's also been a very strong online presence throughout the project, including the live streaming of the training sessions and of today's meeting. So it's been a very busy project, many activities, but the core of this project is really about building relationships and building understanding of how to run effective cooperation between government and civil society, which is really the aim of today. So I would like to invite any questions you may have about the project, and otherwise I will pass on to the next speaker. So any questions?
Дякую, Бен. Я дивлюсь на годинник і бачу, що до нашої кави нам лишається трошки більше години. Тому в мене прохання до тих людей, які будуть зараз брати слово, трошки змінити